You are listening to Balloon Killers. I'm your host, Chrissy Riley, and each episode I'll be talking to someone from the world of cowboy mounted shooting, which is one of the most exciting and fastest growing equestrian sports. Hold on to your hats because it's going to get western. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is that you are listening to this podcast. I hope that you are having a good week. I'm just coming off a scorching 3-day weekend. I did 2 days at Fort Robinson, Nebraska. That's actually a 3-day Border Wars shoot, but I did 2 of the days and then I came back for a local Colorado regulator shoot because I was working in the office. I think I've probably said this a million times before, but if you haven't been to the Fort Robinson shoot in Nebraska, you really need to add it to your list. It is such a great event. It's really well organized by the 3 clubs who put it on. Really lovely people, a really supportive environment, and just a really beautiful place. It's great for trail riding, but there's also some really interesting history there as well if you have the time to explore. I was a little bit anxious going into Fort Rob because Mr. Bear had seemed to do a bit of a 180. Coming out of Rock Springs, Wyoming, I really felt like I had the makings of a shooting horse. I was feeling really excited and positive about the things that we might achieve together. And then in the 2 practices that we had locally before the Fort Rob shoot, he did a 180 and sort of started to go downhill. At Fort Rob, it wasn't as bad as it had been in practice, but it also wasn't as good as it had been coming out of Rock Springs either. But then at the local shoot on Sunday, he was right back to where he had been coming out of Rock Springs, and I'm feeling that optimism and excitement again, which is a relief. And that's just a good reminder of the non-linear line of progress that you get with any sport, actually. So if you're also on the struggle bus right now, just remember that the line of progress isn't linear and know that I am right there with you. My guest for this episode was the 2012 Senior Men's 5 National Champion, the 2015 Senior Men's 5 World Champion and Senior High Point Overall, the 2017 Senior Men's 5 Central Champion, the 2017 Senior Men's 6 World Champion and Senior High Point Overall, the 2018 Senior Men's 6 Eastern US Champion and Senior High Point Overall, and the 2022 Senior Men's 5 Eastern US Champion. But Donnie Sales would probably tell you his biggest achievement is seeing all of the kids in the Wrangler program graduate to level 1 and kick butt. So Donnie, how long have you been shooting and how did you get into it?
We started the end of 01, actually about September, October of 2001. The girl's mom, we had a gentleman starting a horse for us, and he was telling her about this new sport. So she got excited about it and wanted to, go check it out. And honestly, I did not have the time. We were starting a second terminal for Air Products. I was on the board of directors at the church, and we also did boarding at our place, so I was also the maintenance man for that. So I didn't really have time for something new, but she just would not give it up. So I finally agreed to go just to get her to stop, asking about it. And we went, and my horse had stitches all down one side of his head from an accident we had with him. The guy who'd been riding had stitches all the side of his head from another horse. And, we looked like a train wreck showing up. But these people knew him and my wife from previous days of play dating and other things with horses. So they were very, kind about everything. And so he said, well, hey, come on, man, try it. Man, this horse doesn't have 10 saddles on him at the time. He said, no. He said, you're about the same size as me. Hop on my horse and take my guns and just go through there and shoot it. So I went through there and shot all the balloons first time.
Nice.
And got back off. They reset the pattern. And they said, here, do it again. So I go back to there and I go click, click, and he had not reloaded guns, and I hadn't checked them, which is big time against my rules. And so the only time, and since that time, that I've ever gone to an arena with an unloaded firearm. So he loaded weapons for me. I went back through there, shot all the patterns, shot everything, come back out, and he looked at me and said, "Give me back my horse, give me back my guns, and you can go home now." Because I took to it like a duck to water. And so I was hooked. And we started the mounted shooting. I helped start a club in the Houston area, in the Baytown specifically. My first match in February of 2002 that year. And none of those people, with the exception of Matt Strawn, that was at that match are still shooting. I'm still shooting and Matt's still shooting. But everyone else was at that match that day. Every one of them is all kind of fell by the wayside. No one else was still shooting but me and Matt.
Tell us about your background in guns and horses before mounted shooting.
Firearms is just something that, being from Texas, I was born and raised in Texas, and so was my parents, and just something that we always had around with firearms. And so, firearm safety was important to my dad. I had some good friends that were injured or killed during school, and so we always had firearms around. And then when Texas had concealed handgun license, the first year we had it, I became a license holder, had it ever since. And my daughters are all trained. I trained them the same way to be proficient, and my son to be proficient with firearms. Horses, I started riding with my friends, and he was in the fourth grade and competing in play days. Then my freshman year in college, I got away from home. It was actually a trade school for farm diesel mechanics. My dad was a service manager for John Deere for 35 years. So I grew up on a farm, and we did farming and ranching. We did cattle and custom hay baling and farming. And so when I went to trade school, got away from home, the first thing I did was start doing some rodeoing and start riding bulls. Rode bulls through my freshman year in college, had a blast doing that. Was smart enough to know that, that wasn't going to pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
So then we started running Pony Express on the horses. And so when I went to work in the oil field in the early 80s, would work for Texaco for about 8 years in production, and was up in the Panhandle, Texas for quite a while. And that's where I learned how to do team roping and doctor cattle, horseback out in the pasture. And so horses has always been in our life, in or out. When I first moved to Houston, sold horses and started back to school. I was actually going to nursing school when I met the girl's mom. And so I quit and put her through college, and then I got into trucking and still there now. Didn't finish the nursing degree, but we got horses again, and I've not been without a horse since.
It sounds like you've done all kinds of things with horses, but you've landed on mounted shooting. So what is it that you love about mounted shooting? What kept you mounted shooting?
The people. The thing I didn't like about the team roping or the play days, it seemed like that someone was always out there having to drink beer or whatever, and then they wouldn't control it, and they start getting a little bit tipsy or, have a little too inebriated, and it just seems to always cause problems. And because of the firearm, no alcohol is allowed during the course of competition. And then when the competition is over with, then people will start drinking. But at that point in time, you can choose to be around or not. And you can always leave and go back to your trailer or go home or whatever. And you don't have to be around that. And, it's just a choice. But just the people, I've never been in a sport where they would loan you. I've seen Matt loan people firearms and horses and chinks, whatever, a thing to where. And so it's a different culture. If you're here for the money, you're here for the wrong reasons. It's about the competition and the camaraderie. We've got friends that, Matt Schrantz and his dad, when I first met them, they just had a big deal this year for Matt, celebrating Matt's 50th birthday. So you figure that he just turned 50. And I've been doing this since 2001, so this is 25, so, 24 years. So you do the math on that one. I've known Matt since he was, just barely out of college. The time I met him, he'd already won his first national championship. He was very good. He's always, but Matt can do anything. Matt could beat me riding a stick horse. He's just that good with a horse. And it doesn't matter what it is, he can ride and hair off anything. And he's all like Chad, or the late Charlie Little. I have not seen anything no boys couldn't ride and do it well. And Matt same way. It's probably why they all get along so well. So Dylan Lawson, Zane Chun. Zane was used to be one of our Wranglers. So that's kind of what got me in the mountain shooting, was just the people. It was more like a family no matter what you did. And, and that's always good. Everybody's got their weird uncles that shows up, the Uncle Fester or whatever that shows up. I wish he would leave, but it's a lot of fun. And to me, it's still, a Christian-based organization that comes back down to cowboy standards and, some of the old things that Jim Rogers tried to keep in the sport was, with the long sleeves and the chinks and everything else.
Yeah, you mentioned Zane was a Wrangler, and I've heard that you have done so much for the Wrangler program. So tell us about your involvement with the CMSA Wrangler program and how you even got involved with that.
Well, when I first got involved with CMSA and got my girls into it, they were little, but I was watching these kids walk through the arenas, and they would drop balloons on the ground. They'd walk through there and shooting these balloons, and just looked to me like you had a possibility of a kid tripping while they're trying to walk and cock a gun, and just too great of a possibility for a child to get hurt or trip with a gun and go off and hurt themselves or someone else. So I started getting involved locally with a good friend of mine named Steve Moreland. He and I both had kids in Wrangler, so we both started working with the Wrangler to start something. Because that time there was no Wrangler committee at all. It was just whoever wanted to take care of them, and it was usually whoever had some kids that would go ahead and do the babysitting, if you will. And there were no rules as far as how far they had to be close to a pattern or anything else. And basically, whoever could stay on the horse and cross the timer the fastest and lap her into the fastest won. And there was no semblance of running a pattern or teach them much of anything. So we started locally figuring out ways. And a lot of people don't know this, but the more I got involved with the Wranglers, I started talking some with Monroe Hildebrand, who's a gunsmith out of Georgia. Monroe was a very tough competitor, and we turned out, to be good friends later. And I found out in some of our conversations that he was very involved with the Wranglers in Georgia. He set things up, so we started exchanging ideas on what things we did to make the Wranglers be in control of the horses more and be more in control of how they handled, their firearms and how they were shooting. And so Steve Moreland helped me in Texas, and then Monroe Hildebrand was in Georgia, and we talked on the phone regularly about how to streamline it more. And then the president at the time, I went to go talk to him about the need for a Wrangler committee, because when you would go to a national, the way they took care of the Wranglers was whoever the match director was, finds, well, hey, would you take our Wranglers back? Yep. And just hand it off to them. And there was no set way they did things. It was just how that person did it. And they had some people that did a pretty good job. And Rock Clark was involved with them a lot. Cody was little. And Rock did a good job with them. Rock still helps. He's out there cheering them up every morning. At a major, you see Rock Clark down on the arena floor, cheering on the Wranglers and helping the parents. Every single major, he's down there helping them. When I talked to the president at the time, he said, everything's working fine. We don't need Wrangler committee. But he sold out of it that year. Danny Plaster took over. I talked to Danny Plaster about it, and Danny said, completely agree. We need that. And I said, well, I think Steve Moreland, Steve's a lot more of an extrovert than I am. If I'm comfortable with you, I can talk to you. But if I don't know you that well, I'll sit back and usually be quiet. And Steve never met a stranger, ever. And so my suggestion was that he let Steve run the Wrangler committee, and he said, nope. He said, this is your baby, your idea, you're going to run it. And so that's how the Wrangler committee got started, and we put it into full motion. And then the very first year we had it, we were at Tunica, Mississippi. And first time I met Mike Llewellyn, I was asking Mike about that today. He thinks it was 05, the first year they shot, 05 or 06. But Trevor was a Wrangler and had a penalty called against him. They appealed it. Actually, it ruled in their favor. And somebody come back up. They wanted to appeal the appeal. This is ridiculous. But Mike and I turned out to be good friends of this. And so Mike got on the Wrangler committee the following year. And then he's been on, with the exception of that first year, Mike Llewellyn has been on the Wrangler committee with me the entire time. He is as much a part of the Wrangler committee as I am. Our team works together very well, and he has been instrumental in helping us to build the Wrangler program. And we've had some people on and some people off, but we've had a lot of good people. And most of the committee members are all level 5, level 6 shooters that, we know how a pattern should be ran. And Used to, they would set the Wranglers up, just have them make circles around the pattern, and then send them home. And I'd ask them, "Are you going to run it that way?" "No." "Then why do you have the kids this way?" "We need to teach them how to do this so that when they start shooting their horse, that they're riding." I'm going to butcher his name. I know I am, but Dawson out of Georgia somewhere. I can't think of his last name right now to save my neck. He is a level 6, but he won things as a wrangler on the same horse that he made all his level 6s with. So if you teach that horse the wrong way to run a pattern when he's a wrangler because it's easy, and then next year you start shooting and the horse, they get to where they know these patterns, it just makes things tough. So we try to make the pattern set for the kids are going to run it the same way the 1s or the 6s are. And kind of a funny story is that my daughter Sarah talked to me about maybe re-entering mounted shooting this year and next. And she said, "Dad, I just can't afford a horse right now." And she's got her college degree and she's working. And I said, "Baby, we got horses. That's not a problem. You just got to come out and ride and start working with them." And she said, "Well, can I go back to the 1s?" I was like, "No, nobody's allowed to go back to the 1s, but you don't want to go back to the 1s anyway." She said, "Why?" And I said, "Because that's where my Wranglers live, and everybody hates them. Because when they come out of the Wranglers, they're mean."
I was going to say,
out of the Wranglers, they're mean.
Yeah, I was going to say, you have done an awesome job with this program because we can never beat the Wranglers. I was in level 1 for so long because the Wranglers kept coming up. And when they came in as level 1s, they were amazing from the get-go and would be beating all of us.
I wish I could take credit for that. We just set down guidelines, and it's the parents and their coaches that are doing that, But, there's a lady who passed a few years ago named Denise Foriak, and she's an absolute sweetheart. And her husband and their kids, some of their kids competed with us. Daniel Boyak and Josiah was a young one, and Josiah was in Wranglers. And Denise was telling me about he was out there practicing with Josiah, and he ran a pattern. He came back, and he just had this big huge smile on his face. And she asked him, "Are you happy with that?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Thanks for the cool." "Yeah." And she looked at him and she asked him, "Would Mr. Donnie call that clean?" And he stopped smiling, kind of frowned, and he said, "No." She said, "Then run it again and do it right." And she said, "Because you know what he's going to be like at the majors. You know what he's going to be like." And so it was a thing where I'll never forget that. And most of these kids, when they come out, parents are all mad if we call it a penalty. And I asked kids, "What do we call a penalty for?" Because I'm point number 4. You already know. Kids are honest. They're good kids. They're honest. They want to do well. One of the things that I would urge parents, the new parents coming into it, is don't get in a hurry to get the kids out of the Wranglers. A lot of times the kids want to get out there and start shooting, and don't get in a hurry. They can get out their last year on their 12th birthday. They can go ahead and send a letter to CMSA and get out of it. But you need to stay there for the whole year. Unless you're in a situation where you're somewhere where you don't have any Wranglers to compete with and you're kind of in there by yourself, stay with it, because it's something to where you never get to repeat high school. You can go to college as many times you want. You only get to do high school once. Mm-hmm. And the Wranglers the same way. You never get to go back to them. Once you come out of the Wranglers or just enter the match as a ladies one or a men's one, you can never return to the Wranglers. Get the fundamentals down, because once they get those fundamentals down, then you can build on it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate how you have high expectations of the Wranglers, and those high expectations seem to have spread all through CMSA so that clubs have high expectations of their Wranglers. But what other advice would you give to clubs about their Wrangler programs?
Don't shortcut them. Too many times in the past, we've seen people, they're trying to get through. They've got a lot of people there, and so they're trying to hurry and get through for the day because they got a showcase that night to run or whatever. So usually the first place they look to cut their time at with the Wranglers, and it's hurt, get them in, get them out. Or if there's only one Wrangler, they don't set up cones. And it's a thing to where set the cones and judge them properly, because it's a thing to where there was a club, not going to call them out, we've already had a chat, but there was a club that was letting the Wranglers run the first pattern twice and the second pattern twice, and they were done for the day, ammo. And so I called the president, was talking to him about coming to their match, and I asked him if I had a long way to go to get there, it was okay on the last day if I could run early, so I can get out of there. He said, oh, absolutely. We'd love to have you. Come on. We'll roll you in so I can run stage 1 4 times and leave. What? Can I run stage 1 4 times and leave? He said, no. I said, why? He said, we can run all patterns. I said, why? The Rangers don't have to. And he got super quiet.
Oh, no.
I said, listen. I said, he said, they like that. I said, no, I have Hershey chocolate at every meal also. But it doesn't mean it's good for them.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody goes to medical school out of junior high. You go through the steps, and you learn as you have to take the steps and learn. And you don't shortcut the Wranglers. They need to learn every pattern. That, to me, is the thing to where the better they are, then the more fun they're going to have. The more competitive they are, the more fun they're going to have, and the more likely they are to stay in the sport longer. And when my Wranglers outrun me, which the older I get, it's not so hard to do anymore, but it just makes my day because we know we've done it right. Willie Cromie is out there just blistering the arena. Biven Chapman, Zane Chun. I mean, I can just go on and on with these kids that are just ex-Wranglers that are world champions and, just very successful in life, but they're also successful in horses, and I couldn't be prouder of all of them.
Yeah, for sure. And I think something else that is really important about keeping the Wranglers motivated and inspired is that, of course, if they're happy, it's going to help their parents to be happy. So that's definitely something that we want to encourage because this is a family sport. And that's my cat yelling in the background. Change tracks a little bit and ask you some questions that I ask everybody. And the first one is, what is your day job?
My day job is not glamorous. I'm not a heart surgeon or anything of that nature. I work in the oil field. I'm an owner-operator. I haul hydrochloric acid to the frac sites. We run in and out of the oil fields of anywhere from, I've never been to the Dakotas because I always wanted to go in the wintertime and I'm allergic to cold. I've been anywhere from Virginia to Nebraska all the way down to New Mexico, South Texas, or Carolinas, hauling hydrochloric acid. Different well sites or wherever, or even to plants, but hydrochloric acid is what we have specialized in for the last 15, 20 years.
And it sounds like you're pretty busy. So how does that interfere with your passion for mounted shooting?
Well, because I am self-employed, there's times when I have to kind of plan my days off around a shoot. I may work 2 or 3 weeks straight. It makes things a little harder on my wife.
What is your favorite shoot?
My favorite shoot is not even a shoot now. It has to be the Lazy E in Guthrie, Oklahoma. It's a beautiful arena. We like going there because we also breed at their facility. So we love the facility. We love the people. It's not that far from home for us. And in 2017, I've been dating Janie for quite a while. And my daughter said, Dad, it's time for, you guys to get married. We talked to the CMSA people and they agreed to let us have our wedding there in 2018. So at the Central Championship 2018, we actually got married on the bridge at the Lazy E in Guthrie, Oklahoma. So that was always our favorite shoot. Numbers wouldn't sustain us in keeping the match there. So I get it, that if CMSA doesn't have enough people they can't operate a loss. That's how we keep enjoying the game that we love, is they've got to make a profit. And so they pulled out of there. So my second favorite one has to be World. Mainly because, I've won that twice. I won it in 15 as a 5 and was senior high overall, and won it again in 17 as a 6 and was senior high overall.
Nice.
So those two are probably my favorite, but it's the thing to where Lazy E definitely is our favorite above all, just because of the beautiful facility that it is and the people. It's just a great place to go.
I think we need to see photographs and or video of your wedding at the Lazy E.
There's definitely photographs of that, and I just posted a thing here a while back because the plan for the move-up dance and the proposal, Janie was supposed to be down there. Lauren Finch out of Illinois was supposed to be, Sam Finch's daughter, was supposed to be my partner in crime, and was supposed to be spinning, and then Janie was supposed to be there videoing. And then I was supposed to look like I kind of tripped and fell, go down to one knee, and then offer her the ring. Well, you saw my friend Mark Allen doing the live feed video. She didn't know he was trying to catch the proposal, so she just walks off.
Oh, no.
So I had to stop in the middle of the deal, give Lauren a hug, say thank you, and dash off and go catch her. And I caught her out by the door. She didn't want to walk out to where they're taking pictures out for the buckles. And I had to catch her there, stop her. Then I got down on the knees, and she starts backing up. Then I chased down a second time. She's backing up. And so I was going to have to, hit the other knee and just keep on begging to get her to agree to marry me so I could get her the ring. So anyway, some of that was on video, and Mark did a live feed on that, so I'm not sure where that's at. But CMSA was so gracious to allow us to do that. Danny Plaster, the president, Mark was the vice president. They were so gracious to allow us to do that, and we had a really nice time, good reception, and just had a blast, doing that. And it's a memory that will stay with us for now on. And my parents made it, or my mom, my dad passed. So my mom made it in, my family, and my brothers kind of looked down and said, he was just in awe. Couldn't believe all the friends he had from all over the country that were attending the wedding. And so and this was just thought, this is just awesome to have organizations that allow us to do that. So, kudos to Danny and Mark and the CMSA for, they definitely do a lot of things for their members. And, it's a thing to where what makes this sport just more of a family sport, the organization.
Yeah, for sure. What about your favorite pattern, and what tips do you have for running it?
My favorite pattern when I was a 1 was a double rundown, because my horse was super fast, but he didn't know how to turn. So we could run down there and bounce off the fence after and run back and still just about run with anyone at that time. But now my favorite pattern is probably either the pattern that has a gate in the fast 3 or the half moon, because my hammer speed is usually better than most of everybody in my age group. I've always been able to, to add a few little drills that I do to work on muscle memory and your hammer speed. So I like those a little more, but then ones that I can go in there with the horse and shut it down a little bit and just start turning and just start shooting and hit them all. So I still think I have a bit of an advantage over most people at my level, in my age group, just because of that. My wife she stopped asking me. She used to ask me, how you run this pattern? And my stock answer always was wide open. Now she just stopped asking me, because there's so many new shooters and new blood coming into this sport, and it's growing so much that the level 6s, even the senior level 6s, they're mean. They take no prisoners, and they eat their young. And, they're super fast, and there's so many of them that that you have to shoot every balloon. You have to take every shortcut there is, and then let the chip fall where it may. But you got the Cecil Berries and the Chapmans and people out there that they're such gifted horsemen and able to go in there and good shooters and compete a lot. It's just hard to beat them. So you can't go in there and safety up on the pattern and think you're going to win anything. You got to run it hard.
Well, you've had a lot of wins because you've been shooting for a very long time, and you've had a couple of world wins as well. But what's the win that you're most proud of, and why?
It has to be Amarillo, because it's a horse that we had a couple of train wrecks on, and prior to meeting Janie, and so Janie started working with me on him, and Janie got in there and started working, did a lot of working with his air. She's probably one of the best conditioning people I know. Started working with his air, getting him better shape, getting physically fit better, and then working on his mental acuity. And then started working with me and him just so that I would know how to ride him better and cue him. So when I won World and the first time in 2015 on him, that was the first major I had won on him. And we had some pretty bad train wrecks that were pictures of those everywhere also. And I broke some ribs on him and everything else. And so to come back from that and be able to do that with him, that's probably my most cherished win I've got, would be that one.
I love a good comeback story.
Well, it's all because of her. Her and good Lord above just keeping me physically fit enough to go in there and be able to compete, and bless me with her. But, she's just all about the horses and keeping them fit and sound. Adam Ross, who I'm quite sure you've heard him more than once.
Yep.
Adam, now that he's kind of the official guy, he's kind of toned his rhetoric down a little bit. But Adam used to always introduce me as I was in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most movebacks. Me and Shy Rock were almost tied, but I have more movebacks in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most movebacks. And it's a thing to where Craig, and we joke about that. But I think it's one of the things about our sport that people don't utilize enough is that when you get to a level and something's happened that either you got hurt or you got sick or you lost a horse or you just lost a step, sometimes when people, get older, their reflexes aren't as good or whatever. And, and if you're at that level and you've not won anything in 2 or 3 years, and it's not because you're goofing off, it's because, you're just not competitive with those people, then it's time to move back and get back to a class where you are competitive. Because one, you're going to have more fun because you're competitive at that level. And two, sharpen your skills so you can get back. There's things where I fully intend to get back into the sixes with a horse that's fast enough that I can compete with them. And one of my goals is to be one of the oldest seniors to ever win the world. You just keep, getting beat. It's time to, sometimes you need to just take a step back, refocus, get your timing down. Matt Trance has helped me probably more than almost anyone in the sport because when early on, I was running head-to-head, and I'm like a 1 or 2, and Matt's a 5. That's before we had 6s. And Matt said, Donnie, your times are right there with mine on a regular basis, but you're missing too much. Slow it up just a hair until you've had at least 10 matches where you've had no misses at all. And I mean 10 in a row. You've missed one of the matches, start over again. But you have 10 in a row, you're not missing. He said, then start looking for shortcuts. Start looking to take shorter path, take the inside path. He said, I hate being the person out of drag. I like to be able to run inside somebody's footprint. That way you already know they made that shot. You run it inside, so you're already going to save some time off that way. You should start looking for ways to speed it up. And so there's a match in Texas a few years after that, and I was running inside the path, and I looked, and Kurt Moore made a comment. He said, man, I think FedEx delivered that one shot for you because it looked so long. But I just did what Matt said, and we just stayed inside the track. So sometimes I think you lose a step. It's time to take a step back, refocus, get everything back in, and then start stepping back into it, and where you're more focused, more competitive, and then you're going to have more fun. And if you're not having fun, you're not going to stay in the sport. Everybody wants to be a 6. Everybody wants to move up to 6s. They think, hey, I get to 6s, I'm there. And then when they get to 6s or the 5s, they realize, oh wow, these guys are mean. They're nice and friendly outside the arena, but when they step inside the arena, doesn't matter if it's Brett Bukowski, he's a nice guy you want to meet, but inside that pen, he takes no prisoners. Brock Clark, he goes 200 miles an hour at everything, every single time he goes. I think that people just need to take their time, learn the game better, learn it. It's thing to where you don't go to medical school out of junior high or out of high school, and people, very few people ever go to the major leagues out of junior high. Some of them go out of high school, but none of them go out of junior high. Take your time, enjoy it, and enjoy the journey. It's to me, that's the biggest part of it is just enjoy the journey.
What about your plans for the rest of the year? We're halfway through the year now. Well, more than halfway through in terms of where Wolds is situated in the year. But what are your plans for the rest of the year?
Well, it's going to be really tough. My wife is trying to get me out of the oil field and off of the truck. So this year we sold one of the trucks and bought a coffee trailer. We're going to actually start maybe driving some of the matches, the majors, and doing, like not just black coffee, but like espressos or whatever,
Yeah, the fancy ones.
yeah. Somebody has had to make that one. I'm not good at that yet, but I'm learning. Some of the matches that we had the most fun at were Joe Secretera's match, just because of hospitality. Joe and April was just fantastic, hosts, and it's out in the middle of nowhere in Nebraska. Like 3 matches over the weekend there, and it's just a great place to go. And then the Travis quarter horse match that they have every summer for their futurity deal prior to the CMSA futurity in Shelbyville. So that's one that you can't miss because just the Travis family overall, you just can't beat them. They're like the Waltons on steroids. For anybody that knows who the Waltons are, they would shame the Waltons. It's just how their family interacts with one another and how they jump in and help. And you can throw a rock in any direction, and it's going to hit Travis somewhere. Shoot a gun in any direction, and that bullet's going to land in Travis dirt somewhere. It's just they're farmers and just good people. So it's a great match to go to. If you ever get a chance to go to that one, that's definitely, it should be on your list of matches to go to.
Both on my bucket list of shoots.
We wanted to go to the Chapman shoot out there in Wyoming, and we just had too many personal things with the horses that we were breeding and everything this year that we needed to get back for, so we didn't get a chance to go to that one. The Middletons went on and they said it was absolutely one that had to be on the bucket list that we had to go to next year. So we didn't get to make it this year, and we're trying to go next year. But so this year it'll be, the Travis match. Like to go to the Chapman's match. They're going to have the Colorado match July 4th weekend. The following weekend is Joe Secretaris. Then not long after that, Travis match, and then Shelbyville, and then Vernon and Amarillo. Vernon's a classic. It's always a good warm-up match prior to Amarillo. The year that, I think it's the second year I won Amarillo, we won Vernon. And my wife and I both went Vernon, and we both went Amarillo. It's the thing to where, so it's a great match to go to, get you ready for Amarillo, and and then go and wrap up the year there.
Well, I will catch up with you in Amarillo. Well, I wish I was going to the 4th of July shoot in Colorado. I'm in Colorado, but I have a mining contest to go to. That's a long story for another podcast, but it would be great to see you in person and to meet you in person, because this has been such a great chat. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you.
I appreciate your time. I think I have the best job in the world with CMSA as far as getting to work with the kids. When Joe was announcing for us, he used to call me the CMSA #1 babysitter. The kids are a blast. Are always fun to work with, to have been doing it this long. I think we started the Wrangler program either 05 or 06 is when we got it started. So we're coming on 20 years. And we've got it fine-tuned more now. It's a little harder to find things, but there's still some things here and there. One of the things that I got to put a plug in for Mike Llewellyn and Paige Guinness is that they've been working really hard on the CMSA book for the Wranglers, as far as where to put the cones at for the Wrangler patterns. And I mean, there's no Wrangler pattern, but where we put the cones at for the Wranglers. So some clubs are a little confused on where to put them at. That's something that Mike and Paige have worked on pretty tirelessly, and I think they're just about done with it. Mike sent me a copy of it. I think he's waiting for the owners to approve that or whatever, and then so it won't be printed, but something they could be online and people can go in there and print it off if they want and be able to know where to put the Wrangler patterns at. So those guys have done a lot of work.
I so appreciated Donnie's passion for making sure our Wranglers get the best start in mounted shooting, and I hope that anyone who's sitting on a club board was taking note of his recommendations. I want to wish you all a happy 4th of July. Stay safe out there and have fun. And if there are balloon killers you would like to hear interviewed, please email me on balloonkillers@gmail.com. That's balloonkillers, all one word, @gmail.com.